All right, Mike, I think we'll go ahead and get started. As more people come in, I'll let them in through the waiting room. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Carissa Chuka with Results Repeat. Thank you for joining our Lunch and Learn. We're going to talk about how to target keywords with Google Ads. Today we'll be talking about Google Ads, but we also specialize in other forms of digital advertising. So if you have a question about that, you can certainly let us know now, or after the webinar, you can reach out. And of course, we specialize in search engine optimization, conversion rate optimization, and website development too. So today, the main focus of our conversation will be Google Ads and getting the right keyword match types. Presenting today, we have our Director of Paid Marketing, who is Mike Isaac. Everybody here is muted and has video off, but we definitely encourage you to drop any questions for Mike in the chat box, and we'll have a Q&A at the end of our presentation today. So without further ado, Mike, I will let you jump in.
Awesome. Thank you, Carissa. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Isaac, as she mentioned, and today we'll be going over PPC keyword match types and are you targeting the right keyword? So I'll be breaking down the different keyword match types for you, and we'll go over the whole summary right here. So we'll go over those different keyword match types. We'll talk about why those match types are important, how you know which match types to use, and then how you can use that information to really create successful campaigns when you're setting up your own PPC campaigns or even auditing what you're currently doing through an existing campaign. So first to start, what are the different keyword match types? So this chart here kind of breaks down the 4 different match types. So you have broad match, modifier, phrase match, and exact match. So if you're taking a look at this chart here, you'll see that as you kind of go further down this list here, you get more specific with your keywords as we're looking at the match type. So you get more specific with an exact match, and then you'll get more broader with your targeting as you go up to the broad match keywords. And then just how you see with these arrows here, once you get broader with it, you're getting a higher reach and you're hitting more people with your keywords. As you're getting more specific, you have a lower reach as you're getting more specific with your audience, which is reflective of this other line over here with broad targeting and the sharp targeting as you get more specific. So that was probably super confusing. I'll go ahead and break down each of those, so don't worry, this will get a little bit clearer as we go through. So the first one here is with the exact match keyword. So as we go through all of these, you'll see in the top right over here what the keyword structure looks like. So when you implement the actual keyword into your search campaign into Google, with exact match, it's going to be these brackets that you see here. Sorry about that one, too far. With this keyword right here, we're using the example red shoes as the exact match keyword. So what that means is an exact match keyword can trigger any keyword search exactly matching the words within your targeted term. So with this, the keyword's red shoes, right? So the keywords that can be triggered and the different searches that would show up for your keywords and your ads would be red shoes, red shoe would show up, and shoes red would show up as well because it's a close variation of that. And then if we're looking at the terms that wouldn't be triggered with that, it wouldn't show up for keywords like black shoes, red sandals, or red shoes sale, for example. It wouldn't show up for red shoes sale because it's not including sales within the targeted keyword that we're looking for on our end. And that's why that wouldn't show up. So when we're talking about exact match keywords, really the key with that is a specific phrase when you're thinking about the keyword with exact match. The next keyword match type is phrase match. And so when you look at a phrase match keyword, when you're targeting that within a search campaign, it's going to be included within quotations as you see here with the same example, red shoes. So a phrase match keyword can trigger any keyword search containing the words in the specific order of the targeted term along with close variations of it. So any type of keyword that includes red shoes specifically in it will trigger your ads to show up. So you can see here in the examples that we have listed, red shoes running would be an example of when your ads would show up. New red shoes, hiking red shoes for basketball. The terms that it wouldn't show up for are shoes that are red, blue shoes, red hiking shoes, and shoes for basketball red. While those are still kind of closely related to what we have as the targeted keyword here, with this specific match type, it wouldn't be triggered. And so the key to think about with phrase match is having keywords in a specific order. The The next match type is broad match modifier. Now, the one thing to keep in mind with this is it is going away at the end of the month, at the end of July. And with that change, what Google will do is automatically switch this over to a phrase match keyword, which is the keyword match type we just went over. So with a broad match modifier, that's going to be structured with pluses before each and every term within your keyword that you're targeting. So a broad match modifier can be triggered by any keyword search containing all of the words in your targeted term in any order. So when you're looking at the examples that we have for this example, you can see red running shoes would show up, running shoes red would show up. So you can see even without that order being exactly the same, it'll still trigger that search to show. Same thing with shoes basketball red and comfortable shoes red. The terms that it wouldn't show up for are things like blue running shoes, running sneakers red, sneakers basketball red, and pink shoes. And so when you're thinking about broad match modifier keywords, the key to keep in mind with that is in any specific order of what you implement will then trigger your ads to show up. The next match type will be broad match keywords. So this is going to trigger any keyword search containing one or more of the words within your targeted term, along with close variations of it. So if you kind of think back to that chart that I was showing in the beginning of this presentation, this is going to be more of that broader scope type of keyword, which is going to trigger a lot of different searches for your keywords and your ads to show up for. So if you're looking at these examples over here, you can see red running shoes would show up, running shoes, shoes by itself, and even things like red raincoat. So because we have just the color red within that targeted keyword, this would still trigger your ads to show up. So that's why this is kind of more so a broader type of match type that you consider with these. When you look at the terms that it wouldn't show up for, it wouldn't show up for things like black socks, blue sandals, sneakers by itself, or even pink sliders. And so when you're thinking about broad match keywords, it's really going to be any variation of what you put in there. So you can see that there isn't any like pluses or any brackets or anything like that that we're including with this. That's really how you set a broad match keyword within your search campaign specifically. Couldn't find a really relevant GIF, but now you know how to sign language anything. So you learned something new. Now, thinking about broad match keywords compared to broad match modifiers, this is how these really are triggered. So you can see here, this particular example is looking at the keyword car insurance. And we're going to look at both of these different match types. So by broad match, you can see these different searches that people would be searching for would trigger really all of these searches that show up for it. So car insurance, obviously, because it includes car and insurance. Tata AIG insurance would still be triggered because it includes the keyword insurance. Automobile insurance would still be triggered because Google's going to consider automobile a very close variation of the keyword car. Two-wheeler insurance because it includes the word insurance, and then insure a car, same type of thing. When you're looking at the broad match keyword, it's, sorry about that. When you're looking at the broad match modifier keyword, you can see that we have a little bit more of a limitation in terms of which ones would show up. So would still show up for car insurance because it includes both of those terms there. The TATA AIG insurance, that would not be triggered because it doesn't also include the keyword car. With automobile insurance, same kind of thing, that would also show up. Two-wheeler insurance, same thing, doesn't include the keyword car, so that wouldn't show up. And then insure a car, it still includes both of those. So why are these match types important? So there's a few different reasons why they're important. So one comes down to spend. If you're using the wrong match types, that can really eat up your daily budget. So when you're looking at things, for example, like the broad match keywords, and you have a much smaller budget with that, it's usually not a good idea to include those kind of terms just because it can be triggered for so many different searches that can really show up. So that's really the key thing to keep in mind in terms of spend. In terms of the bids, same kind of thing. If you set the wrong match type, it could cost you more. So depending on whatever keyword you're using, it's gonna vary depending on whatever, how expensive that keyword is to bid for. So whenever you're setting those match types, it's really important to look at that and what the actual cost per click is of that keyword, because it kind of, goes into spend as well. You could just be, really eating up your budget at the end of the day and really not targeting the right terms, which goes into the next point is, are you hitting the right audience with your targeting? So if you're using those broad match keywords a lot, you could be hitting the completely wrong audience with that. So if we're going back to that red shoes example, you could still be triggering red raincoats searches, for example, which is obviously completely different than what you're really looking for. And then you can get angry people or people that are just completely irrelevant to your target audience, like Brennan over here. So that's just another example of that. And then looking at the performance of it too, are you seeing the right ROI? So another good thing to keep in mind is thinking about what are your main KPIs at the end of the day. Is this even the right keyword that you want targeting at the end of the day? Are you seeing the right return on investment on those keywords as well? For example, if it's not really converting at the end of the day and it's just eating up a lot of your spend, it's most likely probably not the right keyword for you. However, it really depends on what your KPIs are at the end of the day, which really goes into the next point, how you can really set yourself up for success. So one of them being just auditing your keywords, taking a look at the performance of those keywords. Are you seeing the right performance from it? And going into the next point, understanding your KPIs. So, for an e-commerce company, for example, your main goal is most likely at the end of the day, conversions, and you want to see sales coming out of those ads. As for example, for maybe a communications services company, they're probably more interested in just getting the traffic to their website where it's a little bit longer of a sales funnel, where you'd probably still consider keeping that keyword in focus within your search campaign. So really comes down to what are your main KPIs at the end of the day, and if it really makes sense for you to target at the end of the day. And then the last point with that is just really auditing your campaign structure. If you have those keywords set up correctly, and the one thing to keep in mind when we're talking about search campaign is relevance. And when you're grouping your keywords together, you want to make sure that those are all as relevant as possible between each ad group. And what that allows you to do is get a lot more specific with your ads, and that shows more healthier to Google, which in turn, results in more clicks coming to your ads and more traffic to your website. So just to wrap up what those different match types are again. So when you're talking about exact match keywords, that's going to really be a specific phrase that you're targeting within your search campaign. When you're looking at phrase match keywords, that's going to be a specific order in which you want people searching of the targeted keyword you have set. With the broad match modifier, that's going to be within any order of whatever the keyword search is that you want your ads to be triggered for. And then the broad match is really going to be for any type of variation for the keyword that you have set as your targeted keyword. And so that is all that I had, and I am ready for questions.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about the phrase match being phased out. What can you tell us about it? How can we prepare? Is there anything we should know?
Yes, exactly. So let me go back here to that specific slide. So with the phrase match keywords, basically what's going to happen is Google's going to automatically take any keyword that you have set as a broad match modifier currently and switch it over to phrase match. So basically what that is, when you're taking a look at the two different differences between those two, with phrase match, it's going to be within a specific order, as opposed to the broad match modifier, it's going to be within any order of those two keywords. So basically at the end of the day, you don't need to really make any changes necessarily to those, since Google's going to automatically switch them over to phrase match. But the one thing to keep in mind with that is making sure that you have those different variations set up once that change comes through at the end of the month. So basically, for example, red shoes, you might want red shoes by itself included as that, and then you might also want shoes red. That's a little bit different of an example for this, just because it's only really two keywords at the end of the day. But anything, for example, like even if we're going with the wireless company services, and we're going with Wi-Fi locations services, by having the different orders of those set up differently from a phrase match standpoint, and just having all those different variations set up, that's really all you need at the end of the day, to just make sure that you're covering your bases from all the different possible variations that those keywords could really be triggered by your ads.
Sorry, I was still muted. So thank you. Lots of good questions. That was a great answer. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on. Is there ever a scenario where you'd want to use broad match? Just based on your presentation today, it seems like it could be a huge waste of money. Can you give us an example of where you may want to use that type of keyword phrase?
Yeah, definitely. So typically you'll want to use broad match if you're really not seeing enough search volume around the term by itself. So, there's some keywords, for example, that might be around like 20 to 30 average monthly searches around it. And if you're getting too specific with the match type that you're setting on that, you're going to show up for a lot less searches. So if there's already such a small amount of search volume around that keyword, that's when you'd want to consider putting that in a broad match type. And same thing if you're working with a larger budget too. If you have the money to spend on those keywords, it's definitely a good way to also target those keywords.
So yeah, if you're Nike, you might be willing to bid on shoes or red shoes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So give us some successful examples of exact match or how to optimize exact match.
Okay. So at the end of the day, it's really, kind of taking a look at the behavior of your campaign itself and seeing what people are searching for. So when you're going through the search terms report, you're probably going to find specific phrases that really either convert well for you at the end of the day or really bring in a lot of traffic at the end of the day. So it really comes down to how your audience interacts with your ads. And so if you're seeing one specific phrase that works really, really well for you, that's a particular example of why you'd want to use an exact match keyword because you already know you're going to be super successful with that. And, there also might be a time where, you have that specific phrase, but maybe a lot of times there's an additional keyword included with that you don't want to show up for. So maybe if I'm, Nike, for example, and I'm targeting red shoes, I might set red shoes as an exact match keyword and not include, searches, for example, like red shoes Adidas to show up because there's probably a lot of intent on those searchers to show up specifically for Adidas shoes rather than Nike. So that would be another reason why you'd want to use exact match.
Okay, so someone says, if I've audited my keywords, but I'm still appearing in unwanted searches, is there a way to mitigate that type of scenario to stop it from happening?
Yes. So one way would just be obviously pausing or removing the keyword itself if you're just really not seeing the ROI from it at the end of the day or the right engagement from it. But the other way too, like I was just mentioning in that previous example, is setting negative keywords. So, if there's just like a ton of different irrelevant searches coming up for that, there's probably a couple of themes that you're seeing throughout those search terms that, you would rather exclude from your searches from showing up. So by taking a look at what search terms are coming in and really looking at, if there's a specific word or phrase that you don't want to show up for, if you set that as a negative keyword, that'll help you at the end of the day too.
Okay. Someone asked, is there a benefit to running the same keyword on multiple match types? For example, run red shoes, quotations, red shoes brackets in the same ad group.
Yeah, definitely. So, that's still, a different variation of the same kind of word, but, people might interact with that one phrase a little bit differently than others. And, at the end of the day, it's really just taking a look at the performance of that keyword and seeing which one works better than the other. You're not necessarily competing with yourself because, you kind of have both of those systems in place where, you're asking for one type of specific variation over the other. And that way you're one, covering your bases, but two, you're able to kind of just look at the performance of those over time. And then once you get enough data in, you can probably make the decision of either pausing that keyword or maybe even completely removing it if it doesn't make sense to even look to it in the first place.
Got it. So if we draw in a lot of paid search traffic without getting conversions, would we consider those, or should we consider those as missed opportunities?
It could be. So one thing that you can keep in mind with that is setting up a remarketing campaign. It might just be a case where, they went to your website and for whatever reason, whatever they saw on the website just really didn't get them to want to take action right then and there. So by setting up a remarketing campaign, that is a secondary touch point you can kind of put in place to really get those people back in the door. Because one, they have a familiarity with your brand, but two, they might have not been, really willing to convert at that particular time. So that's just another way that you can kind of reach those people. But, back to the specific question, if you're really not seeing a good click-through rate on those ads, so say, for example, like one person clicked your ads, but the impressions are at over 1,000, that's telling you that you're most likely probably not targeting the right keyword. So if it's not at a healthy click-through rate on that particular keyword, that can be another key indicator of not targeting that specific word.
So yeah, so there are lots of different indicators. Could be your landing page. It could be the, the button type. There could be some CRO opportunity. It could be your ads. There's a lot of things that you'd want, hopefully, a skilled agency to look into. And that leads me to my last question. Listening to Mike, obviously we can tell that you're very experienced and knowledgeable. If someone was looking to hire a PPC agency, what questions do you think they should be asking to make sure that the company they're engaging with is skilled and isn't going to, waste their budget?
Sure. I mean, well, the first thing they should probably be doing is asking you for a little bit of background information. They should be understanding, one, what your main goal is at the end of the day. Is it sales? Is it just getting traffic in the door? Is it promoting a new product? Whatever the case may be, they should be getting that information from you and then structuring whatever campaign plan they put in front of you to best hit that goal. So that's the first thing. The second thing is making sure that they're being realistic with whatever budget you have set at the end of the day, or that you have in mind that you're willing to spend on ads at the end of the day. It's really getting that core information from you of what your main goals are at the end of the day, what you're really looking to get out of this particular engagement. And then at the end of the day, if they're giving you the proper campaign plan to really make you successful to reach that.
Awesome. All right, well, those are all of our questions. I really appreciate it, Mike. This was a great presentation. I definitely learned some things I didn't know. I hope everybody else did as well. Of course, if you think of another question later, you can reach out. It's Mike I at letter I, Mike I at resultsrepeat.com. And I'm Carissa at resultsrepeat.com. Mike, we did get one comment about Michael Scott in the background, so just
yes.
to let you know, added a little extra awesomeness to our presentation today. So thank you. Really appreciate everyone's time and being here, and look out for the recording in your inbox very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.